Hey, Neo fam, happy Monday to you. It's about 1 hour into the market open here in the US. It's Monday, September 15th, 2025. There's your date and timestamp, so you'll know when I recorded this video. Now, over the weekend, I intended to do a longer video that didn't materialize, so I'm dropping one now because there's a lot to cover. First things first, we've got new FTD data that's represented by the white lines on the right-hand side. This is the most recent data we got. Interestingly enough, and what I've done is I've got an overview, and I want to go back a little before the recent reversal with the NIO stock price, because if we start from, let's say, March 3rd over here on the left-hand side of the screen, then what you'll note is from March 3rd through July 10th, which is right here, there were only 2 days where NIO stock had over 100 million shares trade on the daily side of things, and that is significant. How significant is it? Well, if you look at the price action depicted by the yellow, you'll see that with the deluge of white, which is the FTDs, the shorts were likely able to control and pull the stock price down in the short term. But what shifted or changed starting July 11th is we had 11 days just from July 11th through August 28th, which is the most recent data we have with the FTD side of things. And during that very short time frame, there were 11 days where NIO stock had over 100 million shares traded. And with that, we also saw this big move up in price action. How much of a move was that? Well, the open on July 11th was at $3.75. The close as of August 28th was at $6.51. But it gets even more compelling if we look in the shorter term from that time frame, because again, this is always delayed lag data on the FTD side of things. We never get to see real-time data. So the easiest indicator for us to track is that trade volume. And if you'll look at just the most recent, in fact, I'm going to do this. We're going to hone in because I had it set up from July 10th. But the reality is, if we look at an even more recent time frame, these 4 days where we had the back-to-back 100 million share trade volume days, we saw NIO stock go up through the recent high in this year of 2025. That was $5.33. And we haven't gone close to it since then. The low coming with the dilution and around that sort of negative, let's say, news narrative that came along with that. And we still only saw a low of about 560, at least according to Chart Exchanger, which is the data I'm sharing here. And so if you'll notice this morning early on, even within the first 5 minutes of the trade day, I'll show you that in just a second. But right here, if you look at the high today, it's over here on the left-hand side, right up there for today. The high was $6.83. The reason I'm showing you that is if we go back in this very recent uptrend, the highest that we've seen is exactly that $6.83 level. Now, on the right-hand side, this is just today's price action. This is actually pre-market. This is a 5-minute incremental window, 4 a.m. Eastern time, and then 8 a.m. Eastern time. I've been tracking these for a few weeks. Both of those 5-minute incremental windows were green for NIO stock this morning. And then market open, this is what it looked like. And this is where we saw the high off the top of that wick at $6.83. So already within the first 5 minutes of the trade day this morning, we saw that high, that recent high in this year of 2025 touched. Now, the question is, are we going to continue to see this kind of volume even throughout the course of today and this week? I don't know. But what we do know from tracking data over the last couple of years is the big trade volume seems to offset the elevated FTDs. So let's just keep tracking it, and we'll do that moving forward. But now let's pivot and go a little bit bigger picture. In the short term, we're still going to get some data that I'm very curious to see. This is the weekly data that we get, the insurance registration numbers. I've been tracking it a long time. This 6,100 number, I don't know if you can see it, I'll pull it up. This was the first full week in August compared to the first full week in September. This is the best first full week we've ever seen from NIO on the data side of things. And so what I'll be looking for is within the next 24 hours, we'll get new updated weekly data. It'll be the second full week. And I'm hoping we see this kind of number or bigger. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I could see an argument for why we might not. And that's because the ES8 isn't delivering yet. Once those deliveries start, which should be September, according to William Lee, September 20th, which is kind of what I expected with NIO Day. But let's come back to this. The rumor mill is already going crazy, saying there are 100 100,000, probably more orders for the ES8. I care a lot less about the actual orders received versus the deliveries and the cadence, how much they're able to get out. But knowing that they're not going to start deliveries until September 20th, I don't know if we'll see as big of a number here early on in this, second full week of September as this 7,200 number. So I guessed last week and was luckily close to the 6,300 numbers. So I'll guess again. I'm going to say 7,100. I think the deliveries won't actually, pop and really start going until the ES8 comes in on the delivery side of things. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they prove me wrong. So I hope the number is bigger. We'll talk about it once we get the data, again, within the next 24 hours. So this also is going to be coming if the new NIO Onvo L60, kind of the refresh version, if that's going to launch September 19th. Again, this is something that won't be delivering yet. And so I don't know if this changes anything on the delivery side of things with the Onvo L60, meaning maybe there will be fewer orders. I doubt we'll see anything reflected short-term time frame wise with respect to that, but something to keep in mind. Also, I did want to talk about this. I did see this post and I looked. What I thought was interesting, a couple different views or takes on the dilution from NIO, and the reality is we'll have to wait and check back on all this, but I did think this was an interesting post. I don't necessarily think that it's in play. I think maybe based on the 20% interest or holdings or shareholding by CYVN, I don't think that this is proof that they actually were one of the investors who basically wanted to take more of a position. However, I did look back, and based on the price point where CYVN bought, they might have had interest and they might have taken more of a position. So I don't know. It's something we'll have to look back on it down the road. But I did think it was kind of interesting because if, this huge shareholder, that was able to get 2 board seats, wanted more of a position and could at the same time lower their price point, it might make sense, especially with 2 board members. They probably have an idea of what's coming on the delivery side and then with profitability. So, I'm speculating just to share this, but again, I thought it was interesting. Here's another thought and a different maybe take on things. If it is becoming more expected that the payment cycles and things on the supply chain side of things are going to shorten within China, and part of this is perhaps to separate more of the companies that are going to be here in the long term versus those that are actually not going to make it and go bankrupt, then it makes sense that maybe NIO decided they wanted to front load the balance sheet a little more. I don't know if that's in play. Again, I'm just speculating, but it's an interesting thought. And I do think either way, NIO is as well positioned as anyone, at least on the, the younger side of, these companies that aren't as mature to this stage. I still think they have a phenomenal position early on in the Chinese market, as it's still really early in the adoption, the full on market subsegmented shift with premium EVs and the luxury EVs, because a lot of sales are still going to the German automakers, BMW, Mercedes, and BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. Sorry, I'm now thinking about TikTok because I got this queued up. By the way, I had talked about this a couple of times earlier in the year. This is one of the videos where I talked about, the whole TikTok thing was kind of fascinating for me to watch. This is the word is that Trump and Xi are going to talk at the end of this week. And I've just been waiting for this. There's actually a bigger, even more important piece that almost no one is talking about. But I think the reality is that China is in a position of strength, significant position of strength with respect to negotiations with the US. But I don't know what that ends up looking like. So it won't surprise me if we, at least in the short term, see another extension on the 90-day TikTok deal. I think that might end up being one of the things that Trump talks about and sort of touts as something positive. But I really feel like China's in a position of strength. And if you want to know why, drop it in the comments, and I'll link a couple of things so that you can look into it on your own. On being on the research side of things, I just try and stay focused on finding the highest level people I know and can find and learn from. So that's what I'm referencing. But without getting into specifics, I just think the timing of all this is really interesting. And I've come back now to the, short term, as even during this, 5 minute, probably that we were back on this, because the video is about 10 minutes long that I'm doing right now. We've seen a couple more million shares trade. I think 100 million shares seems to be the key point for NIO Stock. And if we go back to that, this is I think the clear reversal, which started right in here. And with that, we saw a lot more trade days of 100 million shares going. It was this, 4-day basically trade days back to back to back to back, where we saw it break through to the now, new or recent 2025 highs. And so I think this is very bullish. It's very positive, but I don't know if fundamentals are going to, lag, if we're going to see, and maybe on the super short-term side of things, maybe we see another pop if folks are paying attention and recognizing what NIO is doing on the insurance registration side of things. But even then, I don't think we're going to see that really big number until after the September 20th date, where ES8 deliveries actually start. So that will be toward the end of September. So my hope is within the next 24 hours, we'll get a 7,000 plus number. I guess 7,100. And we'll find out, and I'll come back and do more content. But because this is a longer video, I will, of course, create timestamps, chapters, make it a little more convenient, and drop the links to everything that I shared in the description. Have a great Monday, day, night, or Tuesday, or whenever you see this video. And thanks for stopping by. I'll see y'all again very soon.